For 123 days, this case has clung to a single name. Not because detectives labeled them a suspect they never did. Not because a court judged them that never happened, but because 4 documented, confirmed facts keep dragging the public back to the exact same spot. No matter how hard the official record tries to turn the page, those cold facts remain. The first fact places this individual in a car with Nancy Guthrie on the last night she was free. The second connects them to her life for 2 decades. The third placed their car in the police garage for over 5 weeks. And the fourth, the most explosive of all, put their name directly on the lips of one of the country's most prominent journalists. This happened just days after Nancy vanished. They have since been formally cleared and passed a polygraph test. A former FBI agent publicly defended them. The sheriff declared that the family is also a victim, and in 123 days, not a single interview, no cameras, and not one word has come from their own mouth, to the world still repeating their name. That is what this is: 4 facts, a silence, and the void in between. This case remains active and under the spotlight because people keep sharing it. Before we go on, like this video, subscribe, and share. The more people who understand what these records reveal, the harder it is for an investigation like this to be forgotten. Stay alert. The garage of Nancy Guthrie in the Catalina foothills of Tucson was opened at 9:48 at night on January 31st, 2026, and then closed at 9:50. Both times were confirmed by Sheriff Chris Nanos. Those 2 minutes are the last trace on the official timeline where Nancy is known to have been safe. That same afternoon, at 5:32, Nancy ordered an Uber from her home to the house of her daughter and son-in-law. This was the exact time confirmed publicly by Sheriff Nanos and the entire Pima County Sheriff's Department. She spent the evening there, dinner, board games, the kind of night that ends with someone driving you back home. That drive home occurred between 9:45 and 9:48. It lasted around 10 minutes, and Nanos officially named the driver in a press conference. He confirmed the driver waited before leaving. He wanted to make sure Nancy got inside safely. He watched the garage door close. Nanos confirmed it that way. It is in the public record. At 5:32 in the afternoon, Nancy goes to her family's house to eat dinner and spend time with them. She was only visiting. They drove her back to her house, which matches the statements given by the family. We know this because the garage door opened around 9:48 in the evening. I cannot emphasize this enough. At 9:50 at night, that garage door closes. Everything that comes after enters a void that this case has never been able to fill. At 1:47 in the morning on February 1st, the front door security camera shut off completely. At 2:12, the system detected motion but did not record anything at all. The camera did not have an active storage subscription, and without it, the footage was overwritten. At 2:28, the app for Nancy's pacemaker lost connection. She was already gone by the time anyone thought to look. Between 9:50 and 1:47, the official timeline is completely blank. That is almost 4 hours. The time frame from when the garage door closed until the camera shut off. That is the exact window investigators have been trying to decipher since Nancy disappeared. Detectives believe Nancy was taken directly from her bed during those early hours of the morning. Whoever took her knew where she lived and how to get in. For his part, the driver cooperated from the very start. He spoke with authorities and gave his full account of what happened. When asked for phones, cars, and access to their homes, the family cooperated willingly, handing everything over. Nanos confirmed this publicly. And on February 16th, Nanos formally recognized the entire family, children, and spouses as victims of this crime against Nancy. He added that to suggest otherwise was not only a mistake, but an act of extreme cruelty. None of that settles the public's doubts. That ride home is the only real boundary police have been able to formally document. The last name listed in the file, the individual standing between what is known and absolute mystery. This is not an accusation. It is simply what the official file reveals. In over 4 months, no official update on the case has placed any other name on that boundary. The void that began when the garage closed on January 31st remains completely unexplained. And that is no small detail. It is the very heart of this mystery. Every serious criminal investigation starts with the same methodical question. Who last saw the victim, and what do the records tell us about that moment? The answer to the first half of that question is already fully documented. The answer to the second half, what the case file hides about that moment. There is a gap of nearly 4 hours where nothing is confirmed, nothing is recorded, and the official timeline goes completely silent. At 84 years old, Nancy Guthrie was sleeping in her Catalina Foothills home when someone came looking for her. No alarms went off, nor was any disturbance recorded in the monitoring systems investigators checked. Whoever entered did not announce themselves. They crossed the property, reached her, and vanished. What they left behind reveals a crucial piece of the story: an ajar back door, her phone, keys, and wallet left inside the house, and not a single trace of Nancy. The FBI formally took over the case on February 5, 2026. Their Operational Technology Division stepped in specifically to analyze the camera system shut down at 1:47 in the morning. That doorbell camera had no active subscription, and its footage was overwritten hours before anyone knew to look for her. They tried to extract whatever the system server had retained. What they uncovered has never been revealed to the public. What police have disclosed is this: at least one person entered her home. When her family arrived, she was already gone. The official record paints a picture of someone deliberately and methodically taken from her home by someone who knew exactly how to reach her. This investigation truly began the morning after her garage door closed. The significance of that ride home is not because it was suspicious. Its importance is purely structural. In any criminal investigation of a premeditated crime, the last confirmed point of contact is the beginning, not the end. That is where investigators start mapping it out. Who was there? What did they know? What did they say? How did the victim respond? In this case, that starting point is documented, confirmed, and added to the public record by the Pima County Sheriff. And it turns out, it belongs to one person. This combination, the structural weight of that last contact, and the official record naming him, makes this first detail the focus of the debate, not guilt, geography. And in a crime like this, that is exactly where the answer lies. Tell us your city and country in the comments right now, wherever you are watching from. This case has reached further than most realize, and those paying close attention keep pushing for answers. That name did not enter this story on the night Nancy disappeared. It was already there. He had been present for roughly 20 years. Tommaso Cioni married Annie Guthrie, Nancy's daughter and Savannah Guthrie's sister. The couple has lived in Tucson since at least 2006. He is 50 years old. By profession, he is a science and biology teacher. He has been part of this family for nearly 2 decades. Before January 31st, 2026, his name was known only within the close circle of the family. Gaining access to Nancy Guthrie's world was far from simple. Her home in Catalina Foothills sits in an isolated neighborhood surrounded by desert cactus. Finding Nancy demanded knowing exactly where to go, not just having a general idea. Knowing which property, knowing when she would be there, when she would be alone, and knowing the layout of a house you had already visited. Sheriff Nanos confirmed that the disappearance was targeted. That was his word, not random. Whoever came for Nancy did not arrive by chance or accident. They had clear intent and details that were not publicly available. And we believe, well, that it was planned. But we cannot be 100% sure of that. That narrows the field considerably. Those with detailed knowledge of Nancy Guthrie's property, her daily routines, and movements form a very specific, highly restricted group. Not just anyone who knew Nancy. That select group was shaped by years of closeness, shared dinners, and frequent visits. That kind of quiet, constant familiarity that only comes from being part of a family for 2 decades. The official position maintains that at least one individual entered Nancy's home in the hours that followed. That person got to her. Whatever they knew about the property, and that night, the layout, the timing, the access points they knew beforehand. The burning question the public won't let go of is not whether Cioni's access was innocent. The official record states that it was. The mystery is who else in Nancy's circle had that level of closeness and knowledge. No one has been named. The case remains open. The polygraph test is worth mentioning. Cioni passed a lie detector test related to the investigation. Coffindaffer confirmed it publicly. Passing a polygraph is not proof of innocence in legal terms. Now, lie detectors are not admissible in most courts, but it is a documented part of the official record. The police administered the test. He took it and passed, which is on file along with everything else. But the nature of a planned crime must be clearly understood, because that is precisely what distinguishes it from a crime of opportunity. A crime of opportunity requires no knowledge, only chance. A deliberate act, however, absolutely demands both elements. And that kind of vital intelligence is not gathered overnight. Nobody plans to break into an isolated home by just driving past it once. First, you get to know the area. You study the routines. You learn which nights are quiet and which ones are not, Whoever entered Nancy's home on the night of February first had that exact information. Nanos made it clear by using the word planned, going even further to reveal the investigation focused on those close to Nancy. Not strangers who crossed her path by chance, but people who knew the property intimately, having been there time and time again. The sheriff officially cleared Cioni of any suspicion, labeling him a victim. His role here is purely circumstantial, not as a suspect. Yet, the same proximity the official record dismisses as a sign of guilt is exactly what makes the community wonder who else shared his world. The last vehicle Nancy Guthrie was confirmed to have been inside before she vanished was a blue Honda CR-V. It is jointly owned by Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni. Police did not waste any time. The Pima County Sheriff's Department immediately seized the vehicle. The official justification from law enforcement was that the car was one of the last places Nancy was known to have been. She was inside on the night of January 31st, during the final 10 confirmed minutes of her freedom. This immediately makes it a critical piece of evidence, regardless of any other suspicions. But what investigators did next with that car is where this story takes a chilling turn. On March 10th, journalist Dave Mack revealed on Nancy Grace's podcast that the Honda CR-V was sitting in a garage under police custody, where they were putting it back together after a grueling search. They did not just search the car, they completely dismantled it. They removed and analyzed every single part individually before reassembling the vehicle in the shop under strict police supervision. Former SWAT commander Bob Krieger explained exclusively to Parade what this level of rigorous forensic scanning actually means. It means fingerprints, DNA samples from various interior surfaces, and the electronic data that modern cars automatically log in their onboard computers. Location history, door openings, engine alerts, and sensor logs. A forensic sweep this deep, Krieger noted, usually means investigators believe vital evidence is hidden where a standard search would never find it. By March 11th, the Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed to Parade that the vehicle had still not been returned. The investigation was ongoing. No return date was given. The vehicle remained in police custody for more than 5 weeks after Nancy vanished. Jennifer Coffindaffer, a retired FBI agent and outspoken advocate for the Cioni family, confirmed on Twitter on March 3rd that the process of returning the vehicle had finally begun. She was direct about the family's situation, urging the public not to cling to theories that official investigators have not confirmed. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has never publicly disclosed whether the intense search of the car yielded any evidence. The forensic findings remain locked away. The case is still open and active. This is the cold reality of that third fact. The last vehicle Nancy Guthrie was seen in was seized from her family, subjected to a search so aggressive they had to take it apart and rebuild it in a workshop, held for over 5 weeks, and handed back without a single detail of that long process ever being released. The Uber vehicle that carried Nancy that night was also meticulously searched. Dave Mack reported that the Uber driver cooperated fully, handing over all footage from the internal dashcam. Detectives analyzed the video, but found absolutely nothing useful. Nothing in Nancy's demeanor or words suggested she knew the horror waiting for her. The driver was quickly cleared of suspicion. That car told the police nothing. The Honda CR-V told the public nothing either, not due to a lack of clues, but because of the sheriff's silence. The difference is crucial. Just because they are keeping their findings quiet does not mean they found nothing. Police do not reveal forensic evidence in an active case. They hold it, they use it. The public record only shows what the police choose to share. The only real thing we have is the process, the passing time, the dismantling of the car, and that cold silence after 5 weeks of a painstaking, methodical, and ruthless examination of the last car Nancy Guthrie was ever known to be in. That silence belongs to the investigation, and the case remains wide open. If you are still watching, drop a comment right now and write, "I am still here." Let us see who made it to the third clue. Because what comes next is what completely changed the public narrative overnight. On February 3rd, 2026, just days after Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home, Ashley Banfield spoke on her podcast, Drop Dead Serious, saying something the Pima Sheriff's Office has been unable to erase from the public record ever since. Banfield is no ordinary voice. She spent 5 years hosting a primetime show on News Nation, after stints at CNN, HLN, Court TV, and MSNBC. She reported on September 11th live from the scene, with over 36 years of experience covering true crime. She left television in January 2026 to focus on her podcast. She is one of the nation's most recognizable voices in investigative journalism. On February 3rd, she claimed there is a connection between Annie Guthrie's car and Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law. We are talking about Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, 50 years of age and originally from Tucson, Arizona. He is married to Savannah's sister, Annie P. Guthrie, and my law enforcement source tells me Tommaso Cioni is the prime suspect. And there is a certain connection between Annie Guthrie's vehicle and Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law. This points to Annie's husband, 50-year-old Tommaso Cioni. He is from Tucson, Arizona, and married to Annie P. Guthrie, the sister of Savannah. My police source assures me that Tommaso Cioni is indeed the main suspect in this case. But she immediately chose to qualify her statements. Let me clarify that, because sometimes someone is just the first person of interest, not the sole focus of the investigation. The Pima Sheriff's Department responded on February 4th. Their official statement was direct: "We have not identified any suspects or persons of interest. Investigators are still questioning anyone who might have had contact with Mrs. Guthrie. We are also awaiting further forensic evidence." Even after the sheriff denied her claim, Banfield refused to back down. The following day, February 4th, she declared on another podcast, "I know the sheriff is denying it today, refusing to publicly name suspects. But that does not mean that, behind the closed doors of this investigation, he isn't the exact person they are targeting right now. I have seen this a million times. For now, they simply prefer to keep that information private. They won't release his name yet. And that is just the reality. Look, I was very careful to say he might be the prime suspect. I never claimed they caught the killer. That is not what my source inside the investigation revealed to me. I know the police are doing their jobs, and they probably want their suspect to keep on talking." Sheriff Nanos responded directly during a press conference, calling the controversial report reckless. In his words, "It is highly irresponsible to label someone a suspect when they could easily be another victim. Not only can you compromise the active investigation, but you can destroy an innocent person's entire life." He reiterated that law enforcement has targeted no one, though absolutely nobody has been ruled out yet. But we honestly do not have enough evidence to say, this is the suspect, or she is the killer. We don't know that. And it is incredibly reckless to label anyone as a suspect when they might actually be a victim of all this. Then, in a statement that should be remembered alongside his exoneration, he added, "Absolutely no one is ruled out." Zach Lind, a relative of the Guthries and drummer for Jimmy Eat World, did not wait for an official response. He posted on platform X, saying, "Tommaso is a great guy. There is no way he is involved in this. Shame on Banfield for spreading this garbage." 12 days after that report, on February 16th, Nanos issued an official statement clearing the family and their partners. He officially classified them all as victims. He stated that suggesting otherwise was not just wrong, but cruel. Yet, Banfield refused to issue a retraction. She did not repeat the accusation publicly in the following weeks, but the dark cloud of suspicion remained. It was a single anonymous police source, qualified by the journalist herself, denied by the sheriff, and immediately refuted by the family. The damage caused cannot be erased by a simple press release. They threw a name into the center of the national conversation from the very start. Those who heard that name on the podcast, and the thousands who read about it in the news, still remember. The denial reached a local press conference. The accusation reached millions on a podcast. It is simply not the same audience. That is the fourth piece of evidence, and it is the most persistent because it lives deep in the public mind, a corner that an official exoneration statement can never truly reach. Let us analyze how information travels in a high-profile missing persons case. Banfield's True Crime podcast has a massive following. Her initial report was quickly picked up by Mediaite, TMZ, The Hollywood Reporter, and dozens of true crime social media accounts. Tommaso Cioni's name was branded as the prime suspect by a crime journalist with 36 years of experience covering the beat. And that is no minor detail. It is the kind of trigger that shapes how the public follows a case, because first impressions in media coverage are almost impossible to erase. The sheriff's response was clear. The family's was too. And their official designation as victims 12 days later was incredibly definitive. Yet the public's reaction to all this clarity has been to keep asking questions about a name thrown into the national spotlight long before any evidence actually existed. This is a highly specific, well-documented phenomenon in high-profile mystery investigations. If a prominent reporter points fingers early on, citing police, softening the blow but never fully retracting. That name becomes the lens through which much of the audience filters every single new detail. Everything revolves around that suspect. Does this piece of evidence help him or sink him? What does it mean for the theory? Banfield planted that seed in the public consciousness on February 3rd, shaping the entire discussion surrounding this mysterious case for months. This pattern is not unique to this active investigation. When a name is exposed prematurely and the official retraction comes too late, the truth only reaches those actively looking, while the accusation reaches everyone. Those two audiences are vastly different in size, and in that massive gap is where these cases remain, living forever on internet forums, long after the police have closed the file. Banfield did not invent the public's suspicions about this case. She simply gave a powerful voice to what the public was already building with those 4 clues. What her report actually did was provide a solid anchor for that doubt. A name backed by police sources, broadcast to an audience starving for a culprit. Whether her source was right or her reporting was responsible, or if the subsequent exoneration can truly repair the damage done, those are the lingering doubts left by this 4th clue. If you value this deep dive analysis, share this video right now. Not for the sensational thrill, but because this is how damage spreads when the media runs faster than the truth. Share this with people you know. Jennifer Coffindaffer confirmed in May of 2026 that Annie and Tommaso Cioni are keeping a low profile while preparing a defamation lawsuit against anyone who publicly claimed or implied he was involved in Nancy's disappearance. It is a highly strategic legal move, perfect for an innocent man targeted on national television by a prominent journalist relying on an anonymous source. Any public statement from Cioni could easily be twisted out of context, sparking entirely new suspicions. A reporter branded him the prime suspect. The police officially cleared him. The massive gulf between those two realities forms the foundation of the defamation lawsuit his family is building. Staying silent while the criminal investigation remains open, and they build their case, is not fleeing. It is a logical, textbook legal strategy. It is a choice, protected by law and advised by legal professionals. But this also means that, 4 months after Nancy Guthrie went missing, the only public timeline of those final 10 minutes before her garage closed came directly from the police, not from Cioni, not in his own words, and without the intimate details. Only someone inside that car that night would know what Nancy said during the drive, whether she seemed calm or terrified, or if anything in those 10 minutes felt out of the ordinary. Everything we know comes strictly from official statements and outside advocates. Not a single word has come directly from Cioni this entire time, and that is his absolute right. It is the right of any cleared individual facing an active investigation and a ruthless media eager to broadcast their name at the very first opportunity. And this leaves a lingering doubt that official statements cannot resolve. Brian Entin, a News Nation correspondent who is closely following the case, said something on March 19, 2026, that resonated deeply. He confessed he has always felt, and still believes, that whoever did this is not far at all from Nancy's house. It is a suspicion that Entin bases on what he actually knows about the active investigation. And Entin has been reporting this case from Tucson with a level of access and consistency that completely sets him apart from all other media outlets covering it. He isn't speculating from the outside. He relies on direct sources inside a case he has been deeply immersed in since the very first days. Not far from Nancy's place lies a geographical observation that is also behavioral. It means the answer to this case, the person or people responsible for what happened on the night of February 1st, probably are not strangers who passed through Tucson once, never to return. It is likely someone belonging to Nancy's geographic circle, her neighborhood, or the orbit of her very own family, her social circle. That kind of quiet proximity that is built up without drawing any attention, and which in a premeditated crime provides the exact, specific knowledge the sheriff confirmed this act required. Entin's observation does not point to Cioni. It points to a profile, the same profile that describes the second fact. The access. Someone with 20 years of family closeness, the person driving the car, who knew the property perfectly. Whether that profile describes the one responsible for what happened to Nancy is something the investigation has not publicly answered, but it is the question Entin's observation keeps wide open. His reading is the one that investigators and behavioral analysts always apply to deliberate crimes. The culprit is usually someone who already had the kind of access a stranger could never obtain so quickly. Someone who knew where Nancy lived, how the property was laid out, when she would be there, when the house would be silent. Nanos had already confirmed the hypothesis. It was a targeted attack. Not random. Those two observations, the confirmation from Nanos that this crime was deliberate, and Enton's reading that the answer lies close to Nancy's immediate circle, do not amount to directly accusing Cioni. They are the description of a type of crime and a class of perpetrator, and added to everything built up in these four acts. They point to a question the investigation has not yet made public. It is not whether he did it. That question has an official answer. Nanos gave it on February 16th, and it is a no. The real question lies elsewhere. Who else inhabited Nancy's world with that level of access? Who else had that closeness capable of giving them the knowledge of the property this crime required? Who else could have moved around that night without leaving a trace that was immediately obvious? What we have is this: a joint reward of $1,200,000 that remains active, an ongoing federal investigation, and a Pima County Sheriff's Department conducting what Nanos defines as an exhaustive and methodical inquiry, along with 4 months of rigorous, documented investigative work that still points to no suspect, in a case the sheriff himself confirmed was planned from the start, and the last person confirmed to have been with Nancy Guthrie on her final night of freedom, free of charges, cooperated fully, defended by a retired FBI agent, and with a legal process underway, has decided under professional legal counsel not to say anything directly to a world that keeps asking the same questions. That choice proves nothing. It explains nothing about what happened to Nancy. It is a legal decision made under circumstances that make it completely logical, and it is the reason why the gap does not close. 4 facts that the official record confirms, an unanswered question that the official record fails to clear up, and somewhere in this case, that the sheriff confirmed was deliberate from the start. An answer that 4 months of investigation have not yet made public. The defamation lawsuit, if it goes forward, will test something that the community has already decided. Those following the case online, or a large part of them, decided that a declaration of innocence, a past polygraph, and the public defense by a retired FBI agent are not enough to resolve the doubts those 4 facts generate. It is not a legal stance, but a human one, representing that void which the justice system, by design, is not equipped to fill. A court determines whether a person is criminally responsible. It does not define whether public opinion is satisfied. These are different questions, and the history of high-profile cases makes it clear they often have very different answers. The O.J. Simpson case ended in acquittal. The public's verdict never agreed. The difference does not always lie in the judicial outcome, but in whether the documented evidence explained what happened in a way people find complete. In this case, the documented evidence of what happened to Nancy Guthrie has not yet reached the courts. The investigation is not at that stage. All the public has are those same 4 initial facts: the route, the access, the car, the report, and a decision that months of official exonerations have failed to silence. Not because staying silent is wrong, but because silence is, by nature, incomplete. And in a case the sheriff confirmed was deliberate, that an active federal investigation is underway, and the $1,200,000 reward has yet to yield any publicly named suspect, so it remains unfinished. But these documented facts are the foundation upon which we built this report. 4 key facts, each fully sourced and carrying its own official explanation, all part of a case that the official record classifies as a targeted attack, which a News Nation reporter says haunts Nancy's inner circle, and which months of federal and local investigations have failed to solve. The legal silence that surrounds one of those documented facts, that choice, which Coffindaffer called a strategy and months, have not changed, answers none of the questions in this case. It proves nothing. It is the choice of someone already cleared of suspicion in a situation that justifies it not because of what this silence proves, but because of what it leaves hanging in the air. In a case where the silent individual is the last person the record places with Nancy Guthrie on her last night of freedom, Nancy Guthrie deserves to come home. 4 months without an arrest in a planned kidnapping does not mean the investigation has failed. It means that investigators have not yet found that key piece in the official record, a forensic match, a witness statement, or a digital trail to bridge the gap between what they know and what the prosecution demands. Their timelines are very different. The pace of the investigation and that of the prosecution do not always move hand in hand. Public opinion, detached from these processes, moves on a third plane, one free of evidentiary standards or judicial limits, a path driven solely by the 4 available facts, the documented silence, and the complete lack of official answers. In that third arena, that of the people, the chasm between official truth and public suspicion is where these cases dwell for years. What the law dictates is already clear. Where public attention has drifted is another story. The numbers reveal just how much is still at stake. There is nearly $1,200,000 accumulated in rewards. The FBI is contributing $100,000 with $1 million from the family, and additional funds provided through the 88 crime tip line. The FBI remains involved, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department continues to work the case. No official suspects exist, and no arrests have been made, but the investigation is by no means cold. Nanos describes it as active, methodical, and constant. Meanwhile, the family publicly speaks of living in complete agony. Savannah Guthrie stepped away from the cameras and major news coverage right after her mother disappeared. The family released a statement asking people to reflect on the night of January 31st and the early morning of February 1st, searching for any detail, sound, or suspicion they have not yet reported. What this case needs is not more commentary. It requires someone with specific details. Someone who saw a suspicious car, or overheard a conversation, or noticed something before or after January 31st that seemed completely insignificant at the time. In targeted crimes, the clue that solves everything often stems from a detail that seemed completely unimportant. The documented history of this investigation is extensive, public, and readily available. What remains hidden is that final piece of evidence that law enforcement has yet to find. That key piece lives in someone's memory, on a security camera, or in an unreported rumor. And before we close, thank you. This channel remains active, thanks to those who seek the documented truth behind such difficult stories. Every source revealed, every piece of evidence analyzed, with no rumors masquerading as truth. If this matters to you, consider joining. That way, you access exclusive content, support this work, and keep these analyses visible to the people who need them. The fact that you stayed to review the 4 key facts and everything that followed is what makes this possible. If you know anything relevant about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, a name, a detail, or a moment that seemed insignificant, there are people waiting for your call. The FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can also contact 88 Crime. The combined reward of $1,200,000 remains active for any useful information. You do not have to give your name, you just have to be right. This case remains wide open. The investigation continues, the reward remains on the table, and Nancy Guthrie's family is still waiting. Every lead counts. Every tiny detail is vital. If you know something, the only right thing to do is call.